Welcome to the deep dive.
Hello.
Our mission here is pretty straightforward. You give us the sources, articles, research notes, whatever you've got, and we dive in.
We pull out the key insights, the important bits, try and connect the dots for you.
Exactly. It's about getting informed, fast, hopefully with some surprising details, and a good conversation along the way.
Think of it as navigating the information together, finding the story inside all that material you've shared.
Right. And today, thanks to the sources you sent over, we are doing a deep dive into one single, really powerful painting, Vasily Pukirev's Unequal Marriage.
Ah, yes. A famous one.
We've got articles, some research focusing specifically on the painting, on Pukirev the artist, and, this is interesting, on the people in the painting, who they might have actually been.
There are definitely theories there. So our goal today is, I guess, to unpack the whole story behind this major Russian work.
We'll look at the social issues it was tackling, really get into the scene itself on the canvas.
The symbolism, which is quite layered, the real-life people possibly hidden in plain sight.
And then, what happened afterwards. Its impact.
Right, because this isn't just like a pretty picture. It's a window into a whole society, 19th century Russia.
And maybe a personal tragedy for the artist, too. Plus, as you'll hear, there might be some, let's just say unexpected figures lurking in there.
Definitely some unsettling possibility.
Okay, let's get into it. The painting itself, the basics.
Okay. Artist, Vasily Pukirev. Date, 1862. So pretty soon after he finished his art studies.
And it's big, right? The sources mention the dimensions, 173 by 136.5 centimeters. That's quite large for a genre scene, painting everyday life.
Yeah, usually those are smaller. The scale gives it presence. It's at the State Tretyakov Gallery in Moscow now.
It was first shown pretty quickly, wasn't it, 1863?
That's right, at the academic exhibition, and bam, it made a huge splash, really launched Pukirev, got him the title of professor, apparently.
So the scale, the subject, it stood out.
Absolutely, and the subject was, incredibly relevant at the time.
The sources really highlight this. Mid-19th century Russia. Lots of social change happening.
And a big, painful issue was the situation for women, especially young women without much money, without a dowry.
Being married off against their will.
Yeah, marriage is based on calculation, money, status, not love. That was common.
And the sources specifically mention marriages with big age gaps as being seen as particularly painful for Russia then.
It wasn't something people ignored either. It was in the culture.
Like that play mentioned in the sources, Ostrovsky's Poverty is No Vice from 1854, touched on the same theme.
Right, and even the church weighed in. There was that decree from the Holy Synod in February 1861 condemning marriages with large age differences.
So Pukirev wasn't painting in a vacuum. He was hitting a nerve.
Definitely. It's a clear critique of those social norms, the arranged marriages, the power dynamics.
And the reactions showed that, right? Some people were shocked by how blunt it was. Others really admired his boldness and skill.
Exactly. Polarizing, you could say.
Okay, let's step into the painting itself. Describe the scene. It's a wedding.
Yes, a wedding ceremony inside a church, but it's depicted in, semi-darkness mostly.
But the light, that's crucial.
Oh, absolutely. The sources point this out, light from a window, maybe. But it brightly lights up only the absolute key figures.
The groom, the bride, the priest.
Yeah, and the sources compare it to Caravaggio, that kind of dramatic, almost divine light, focusing your attention, heightening the emotion.
Let's look at those figures in the light. The groom first.
Okay. He's clearly elderly, very well dressed, but his face.
Wrinkled, yeah. The sources use words like confidence, maybe arrogance, even condescending irritation. Dull eyes, pursed lips, not exactly warm.
No. And he's got the status symbols, that Order of Vladimir, second degree, and the star on his chest. Clearly important, or at least wealthy.
His posture, too, that stiff collar makes his face seem fixed, and his eyes are sort of angled towards the bride.
A bit possessive, maybe.
Maybe. And the contrast with the bride. It's stark.
Totally stark. She's described as incredibly young, almost a child. You can see it in the shape of her face.
Light brown hair, much shorter than him. And the veil, symbol of innocence, of course.
Her face is pale, eyes downcast, looks like she's been crying, or is about to. It's really heartbreaking.
She looks so pure in the white dress, but so vulnerable.
And her hands. They tell a story, too. One hand holding the candle, but listlessly pointing down.
While the other, her right hand, is being extended towards the priest for the ring. Almost passively.
Yeah, like she's resigned to it.
And the priest, what's his role visually?
He's kind of hunched, weighted down almost. His gaze is heavy, looking out from under his brows. He's got the prayer book, and he's holding the ring, ready to put it on her finger, completing the transaction, basically.
Grim. But there are other important figures nearby, right?
Yes. Crucially, the Schaefer, the best man. He's standing near the edge, behind the bride.
And his expression is completely different.
Totally. Clear disapproval, maybe anger, arms crossed defensively on his chest.
The sources note he's young, like the bride,
Yeah.
and that they seem connected somehow.
Yeah, like they share this inner experience, this sadness or protest against what's happening. It's a strong contrast to the main group.
And he has a rose pinned on.
Yes, near his heart. Which the sources suggest might not just be decoration, but maybe a sign marking him for suffering too. A romantic, tragic symbol.
So Pukirev put them close together, the bride and the Schaefer, linked by youth and sorrow.
Exactly. A deliberate visual connection.
What about the other people? The guests.
They're more in the background, secondary. Seems like two groups, maybe his friends and her family or guardians.
The sources mention some details, like some look just curious.
Yeah, frankly curious. There's maybe an older woman watching the groom, possibly a matchmaker, and someone near the Schaefer who looks sympathetic towards the bride. They're observing part of the oppressive social backdrop.
So pulling back from the figures, what's the main takeaway here? How Pukirev built the scene.
I think it's how he uses everything, the composition, that dramatic light, the specific expressions, the postures, to build this intense emotional and psychological drama. It makes the social criticism feel incredibly personal, very immediate. You feel the tension.
But there's more going on than just the people, right? The sources talk about symbolism, even down to the frame.
Oh, absolutely. The frame is a big deal here. It wasn't just any old frame.
Made by his friend Grabensky, specifically for this painting.
Exactly. Meant to be unique, part of the artwork itself. And the design is loaded with meaning.
It's got flowers and leaves, but also a dead ivy stem twisted together.
Right. It's a direct visual metaphor. The budding flowers, that's youth, life, beauty.
And the dry, withered ivy is old age, decay, maybe constriction.
Perfectly mirroring the theme of the painting, the unnatural union.
And there's orange blossom too, flared orange.
Yes, that motif appears on the bride's dress, symbolizing innocence, youth, tenderness, and it's repeated in the frame.
But in the frame, the sources say it looks like the delicate flowers are being strangled.
Yes, strangled by that dry old ivy stem.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful reinforcement of the suffocating nature of this marriage, youth being crushed by age.
And the frame itself is apparently quite fragile.
So fragile and so unique and integral to the piece that the sources say that's why the painting never travels. It stays put in the Tretyakov gallery.
Wow. Okay, now for something really strange. Those figures in the background.
Ah, yes. This is where it gets, as one source puts it, very strange. Behind the groom and the priest, in the shadows, two old women.
And the detail is they're wearing wreaths, like the bride.
Similar wreaths, yes. And even more creepily, one seems to be wearing a white dress that looks kind of like a shroud.
Whoa. Okay, what's the interpretation there?
The sources suggest that these could be the ghosts of the groom's previous wives, or maybe previous brides who didn't make it.
So, like, spectral witnesses to this latest union. That is dark.
It really adds this almost gothic layer, doesn't it? Like something out of Gogol or Hoffman, as one source mentions. It definitely makes you think about the bride's potential fate. It's not just social realism anymore.
No kidding. It casts a real shadow.
And the symbolism, it even extends to the bride's hand again.
How so?
Some analysis suggests the real focus, the compositional center, isn't the faces, but her hands, the one reaching for the ring, the other hanging limp with the candle.
And the meeting.
That she's not just getting married, she's being called to suffer. It's a sacrifice. And maybe the priest's posture, slightly bowed, acknowledges that sacrifice.
Wow. Okay. And finally, the gazes. The way everyone is looking.
Right. One source traces this play of gazes. It's fascinating. The dead wives look at the groom looks at the bride looks down.
The groom's buddies are looking at the bride too.
Intently. The Schaefer, maybe Pukirev himself, is also looking at the bride, full of sorrow.
But then there's that one guy, Melkov, the friend.
Yeah, standing near the Schaefer. He's looking straight out at us.
Like he's asking, do you get it? Do you see this tragedy?
Exactly. It breaks the fourth wall in a way. Pulls the viewer right in.
So summing up this layer of symbolism, the frame, the ghosts, the hands, the gazes.
I think the insight is how Pukirev goes way beyond just painting a scene. He embeds these really deep, sometimes dark, symbolic elements that enrich the narrative, making it about fate, sacrifice, and the haunting legacy of these kinds of unions, not just social commentary.
Okay, this brings us to one of the most talked about aspects.
Yeah.
Who are these people? The real-life prototypes. The sources have a lot to say here, but it's not straightforward.
No, definitely not. There are different versions, competing theories based on testimonies, letters, resemblances. It's like historical detective work.
Let's start with the Schaefer, the best man. Two main theories.
Right. Version 1, which seems to come a lot from a relative named Nikolai Vorontsov, points to Sergei Mikhailovich Vorontsov.
A young merchant, friend of Pukirev's.
Supposedly. The story goes Sergei was in love with a woman named Sofia Nikolaevna Rybnikova.
But her parents married her off to someone else, richer, older.
Exactly. Andrei Alexandrovich Karzinkin. And here's the twist. Because of family connections, Karzinkin's sister was married to Sergei's brother. Sergei was allegedly forced to be the best man at her wedding in 1860.
Ouch. That's agonizing.
Right. And this theory says Sergei was furious when he saw himself depicted in the painting, leading to a big fight with Pukirev.
And Pukirev added a beard later to maybe disguise him a bit.
That's the story. Added a small beard, though Sergei was clean-shaven, but kept the features.
Okay, that's version 1. What's version 2 for the Schaefer?
Version 2 comes from Pukirev's artist friends, like Gribkov and Mudrogel. They claim the Schaefer is actually a self-portrait of Pukirev himself.
They compared it to another self-portrait he did.
Yes, in the artist's workshop, they saw a resemblance.
But didn't one source say modern research doesn't really back that up?
Correct. It notes that modern research does not confirm this hypothesis. So it's a theory from his contemporaries, but maybe not definitively proven later on. It shows how tricky this is.
Okay, so the bride's identity depends on what Schaefer theory you lean towards.
Pretty much. If the Schaefer is Sergei Vorontsov, version 1, then the bride is likely Sofia Rybnikova, the woman he supposedly loved who married Karzinkin.
But if the Schaefer is Pukirev himself, version 2,
then the bride is linked to Pukirev's own life, his own potential heartbreak. This version identifies her as Praskovia Matveyevna Vorontsova.
described as his failed fiancée or love.
Yes, and there's that really specific piece of evidence mentioned, the drawing from 1907.
Right, by V.D. Sukov. Decades later, identifying this woman, Praskovia Vorontsova, living in a poorhouse as the model for the bride.
That's a very specific, powerful claim, even if it came much later. It lends weight to the Pukirev self-portrait theory and his own lost love being the subject.
Fascinating. What about the groom? Is he one person?
Probably not, according to the sources, more likely a composite figure.
Based on a few different people.
Yeah. Names mentioned include Alexei Markovich Poltoratsky, a nobleman based on portrait resemblance.
And Prince Tsitsinov, because of a sketch Pukirev did.
Right, an etude titled Head of an Old Man,
Wow.
supposedly noted as being written from Prince Tsitsinov, capturing his expression, perhaps.
Them even.
A cook. Bizarrely, yes. A cook named Vladimir Ivanovich, who worked for the Vorontsovs, whose head shape or distinctive gray hair might have been incorporated.
So the theory is Pukirev kind of mixed and matched. Body from one, expression from another, hair from a third.
Seems like it, blending observations to create this archetype of the wealthy, aged groom.
Are any other figures identified?
A couple are suggested. Pyotr Shmelkov, the artist friend who supposedly gave Pukirev the idea for the painting.
He's the sympathetic guy standing near the Schaefer.
That's the theory. And Grabensky, the friend who made the unique frame, is supposedly depicted off to the side, behind the groom.
Okay, so the insight here seems to be, while we can't be 100% certain about everyone,
There's strong evidence Pukirev used real people, maybe even his own experiences, as inspiration. And that grounding in reality, that connection to actual lives and heartbreaks, probably contributes hugely to the painting's emotional punch.
absolutely. So the painting itself had a huge impact. But what about its legacy? And the lives of the people involved or potentially involved?
Well, as we said, the initial reception was massive. It made Pukirev famous overnight, got him that professorship.
The reactions quoted in the sources really show its power. Sazov calling it capital, but tragic.
Rapin saying it spoiled blood for many old generals. You can just picture them squirming.
And that story about the historian Kostomarov changing his mind about marrying a young woman after seeing it. True or not, it shows the legend around its influence.
Definitely. Though not everyone was completely won over. That magazine, Iskra, felt it was maybe a bit too sentimental, lacking deeper social analysis.
Did Pukirev return to the theme?
He did. He painted a repeat version in 1875. That's the one in Belarus now. One source speculates it might have been a tribute to Sergei Vorontsov, the possible Schaefer who died in 74.
And he did other paintings about marriage issues, too.
Yes, like receiving dowry by list and interrupted wedding. Clearly, it was a theme that preoccupied him.
And the painting itself kept popping up in culture later on.
Yeah, mentioned in that Soshchenko story in 1935. And used on that rock album cover by Crematory, though they added someone, apparently.
So its image endured. But what about the real people, their later lives?
The sources give us some clues, and the contrasts are quite striking. Sergei Vorontsov, the potential jilted lover Schaefer.
He married someone else.
Yes, Olga Urusova, lived a seemingly more ordinary life, died relatively young in 1874.
And Sofia Rybnikova, the bride, in that version of the story.
She married Korzinkin, the wealthy older man. They had children. She got involved in charity, lived a long life until 1911. Outwardly a respectable, conventional life.
Which is quite different from the fate suggested for the other potential bride.
Radically different. Praskovia Matveyevna Vorontsova, the one identified in that 1907 drawing, Pukirev's supposed love.
She ended up in a poorhouse.
Yes, the Mazarin poorhouse, as a widow. A very sad end, especially compared to Sofia Rybnikova's life. It really highlights the different paths women's lives could take.
And Pukirev himself, after this huge success.
It's quite tragic, really. His career kind of peaked with unequal marriage. He got sick later on, had to stop teaching, apparently struggled financially.
Didn't paint anything else that reached the same level?
Sadly, no. Nothing with the same impact. He died in 1890, famous for this one painting, mostly. Though they did name an alley after him in the cemetery where he's buried.
Wow. So the painting lives on, hugely famous, but the artist and some of the people possibly in it, their lives ended quite differently, often, sadly.
It's a really stark contrast, isn't it? The enduring power of the artwork versus the often difficult realities of the lives connected to it.
It truly is incredible. So much history, so much human drama packed into this one canvas.
It really is. And thanks to the sources you brought us for this deep dive, we've been able to unpack so many layers.
Yeah, the social critique, the incredible detail and symbolism in the scene, those fascinating tangle theories about who the people really were.
And thinking about their actual lives afterwards, how different they turned out.
It definitely leaves you with something to think about. Here's a final thought for you, the listener. How much of this painting's lasting power comes from its clear social message? How much is just Pukirev's incredible skill as an artist?
And how much comes from knowing, or at least suspecting, that it might be steeped in real heartbreak? Real lives, real struggles that Pukirev witnessed, or maybe even experienced himself.
It makes you realize how a single image can hold so many stories, doesn't it? The ones you see right away and the ones hidden deeper.
Definitely. A good reminder to always look closer, to dig a bit deeper into the stories behind the art and history you encounter. There's often more there than meets the eye.